Hello, nerdy romantics. This episode is my best of 2025, my best nerdy and romantic combination of shows, movies, and of course, books. A lot of these we talked about on different podcast episodes, but I really wanted to highlight them as my best of 2025 because we have actually more than just me talking. So I wanted to point out my best of 2025, and I wanted to just give a little take on why I thought they were the best. This is the Nerdy Romantics Podcast, and I'm your host, Y.M. Nelson. So let's start off in our book category. And y'all know how I am. I have notes here. And of course, I wrote these notes in a nice, colorful green ink, which, how about this? I can't read, but I will attempt to read my notes here. So these are not in any particular order, but these are my best books I read in 2025. Most of them are romance novels, but not all of them are. And the first one I have on my list is Curvy Girl Summer by Danielle Allen. I really loved this book. Y'all, I'm a fan of witty banter. And this gives us some really good, acerbic, witty banter. And that is above and beyond my fave. But I really love the relatability of these characters. Obviously, curvy girl means we have a curvy plus size heroine, and I am all about that. There's an online dating aspect to it that I love, and because I actually read it because I was wondering, how Danielle would do the online dating aspect in her book, because of course the accidental swipe has an online dating aspect, and I like to see how different authors take that very broad topic and make it their own. And I really love the take that she did here with Curvy Girl Summer. But I just love this book in general, and of course this is the first of a series, so in 2026 I'm hopefully getting the rest of the books that are in this series. I think she's putting another one out this year, but we'll see. I know there's at least 2 more books in the series that I've got to read, so looking forward to that. Also on my book list is Can't Get Enough by Kennedy Ryan. This is in her Skyland series, and this is the last one in that series. And I really loved this book. I will say I thought, as with any Kennedy Ryan book, y'all know, if you know Kennedy Ryan, you know you're going to cry at some point. And I thought that with this book that I was just going to be bawling because one of the topics that she explores here is dealing with someone in a family who has Alzheimer's, and that is slightly personal to me. So I thought, hey, this is gonna be another crying jag, but this was not as much of a crying book as I thought it was going to be, but it actually did have me feeling a lot of things, as Kennedy Ryan's books do. This one also had a topic of venture capital funding and the lack of diversity in venture capital funding and the lack of supporting Black business and Black women in venture capital funding. And I didn't realize that I felt the way I felt about that particular topic. But the romance portion of this, absolutely loved it. And I always say this, every year I say this, I say that I'm not going to read another billionaire romance. I always say it. But this is a billionaire romance, and this is the best billionaire romance that I have read so far. I really love how this is done. A second best is my first episode of this whole podcast. And you can go back and find that, because right now I'm talking about Can't Get Enough by Kennedy Bryant. And I can't get enough of this book. But this is the last in her Skyland series. And I believe in 2025, this is optioned and possibly in production at this point, this series for a TV show. And I cannot wait. Or for a movie. I don't care what it is. I can't wait to see it. My next book on my list for faves of 2025 is Losing Sight by Tati Richardson. Y'all know Tati Richardson. She's my friend. So I've got to read the books. And it doesn't necessarily mean they have to be a fave, but this one definitely is a fave. And there are two reasons why. One, a man with glasses, y'all. That's all I'm going to say. A man with glasses on. A hot man with glasses. The second reason is because these main characters are of a certain age, right? These are not 20-year-olds. These are 40-somethings or almost 40-somethings. And I am all for it. So I'm all about this particular book. I love Tati with her open door romances. She's good with that. And I love too that she also had this main female character. I love the fact that like everybody loved her. Everybody wanted her and everybody loved her. And it was just it was so cool. Like the guys that she came in contact with, oh yes, they were all about her. The race car driver was all about her. The cowboy was all about her. And y'all, black cowboys, okay? They are in romance novels. So, go out and find them. They're there. I loved, everything about this. This is, I believe, book 1 in a series. Book 2 is coming out this year, 2026, and I can't wait for it. Our next book on my list is Only for the Weak by Natasha Bishop. Now, this wasn't released in 2025, but I read it in 2025, and I love this one as well. Everybody has said online, and I totally agree with this statement, is that this is a primer for guys out there. If y'all don't know how to treat a woman, how to woo a woman, how to respect a woman and treat her in a relationship, then you need to read this book. Only for the Weak. It was a fun read, but it was at times a little bit of an emotional read because there is some gaslighting of the main female character. But the fact that Roman, who's our love interest here, our main male character, comes in and just basically sweeps her off her feet and gives her much needed attention, respect, adoration, is everything. It is everything that I needed in 2025. And so loving that one. My one fantasy book, and it's a YA fantasy at that. We did a couple of podcast episodes on this book. And my best of 2025 is Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi. And obviously it was not written this year. But the reason why we did read this book and put this one on the podcast, obviously this is one of my nerdy selections on the podcast, but also it was announced that there is a movie coming out about this book, and a movie was cast. And I don't know if production has ended as of this recording, but production was out as we were reading and recording these episodes. that we did for Children of Blood and Bone. I really loved this book. This is epic fantasy at its best. It has tons of African folklore and culture and representation. I love the themes in this book. I I love the character portrayals and the character interactions. And this is an ensemble cast, right? An ensemble kind of book. Zelly is that one main character that we're following, but this really is an ensemble. And the fact that she made these characters very relatable, very round characters, gave it an authentic kind of feel. And I love that about this particular book. And of course, as soon as I finished it, I wanted to read the next one. So, so there's that. I just wanted to keep reading. I wanted to have to know more about these characters and see where these characters were going. So not necessarily a best of, but hey, why not? Why not promote myself? This year saw The Accidental Proposal. Here we go. The Accidental Proposal was my release this year that came out wide. So this was already in KU for a time, but then it went wide this year in July. We didn't do a launch kind of episode on that, but planning in 2026, I am planning to wrap up the trilogy with our last book in this series. This is book 2 in the series. The Accidental Proposal is book 2 in the series. And so book 3 will hopefully be releasing sometime in the summer of 2026. Yes, you heard it here. That's the first time I've said it, so I've committed to it. Oh my goodness. I'm still writing it, y'all. So, this is a thing. But I'm really enjoying it as I'm writing. So we'll say an honorable mention or a happy time for 2025 was getting The Accidental Proposal out wide. The Accidental Proposal also was a finalist in a couple of awards there, and I was really happy with how that went, and I can't wait to see how this trilogy wraps up because, of course, I have not finished writing it. So let's move on to movies. So my best movies in 2025, of course, were mainly superhero movies. So these are going to kind of go in order. Unlike the books where I had different vibes for all of these are going to kind of go in order. Let's start from the bottom. My honorable mention best is Captain America: Brave New World. If you saw or listened to the podcast episodes that we did about this particular movie, we had some kind of feelings about the final product that came out. I think, though, that if we had seen the original movie, we would have done 5 stars for that movie. And the fact of the matter is, with Captain America: Brave New World, and why this is on this list, is to have this come out in this particular climate in America, and it be the main parts of it pretty much true to comics, was courageous. It was brave. And basically, I loved the Sam Wilson Captain America. I love kind of his portrayal. I loved having Isaiah Bradley portraying from Falcon and the Winter Soldier back, having him back as the first Captain America there. And just all of the whatever that they had to go through just to get this movie out. It had to have been something, especially considering that they tried to make it as palatable as it could be, which is kind of, I think that's where the fault really is. Should have just been even more brave. Should have taken a lesson from Sam Wilson as Captain America and just been even more brave and put out the movie that was supposed to come out. My number 5 best movie of 2025 is actually a romance movie based on a romance novel. And it premiered on the CW in November, actually, the Sunday after the American Thanksgiving. And the name of that movie is Savvy Sheldon Feels Good as Hell, from the book of the same name. I really like how this was done. This is a rom-com movie from a well-done book. I was excited when I heard about this one coming out. I loved the representation here. I loved the realness of this movie, and it was just really good and really fluffy. Our main character here is going through basically trying to find herself. And to do that, she has to break up with this boyfriend who doesn't seem to want to be more than a boyfriend. When we're talking commitment and marriage, we're not getting anything, but instead he wants to upgrade her into his image. But after her favorite heirloom stove goes kaput, she realizes that she does need to do some things for herself. Not what her boyfriend was requesting that she do, but she needs to do some things to better herself. And during this particular journey, she meets a handyman kind of guy who helps her upgrade her kitchen and helps her with this upgrade of her life. This is just a cute, romantic movie. It was well done on the CW. It is actually part of a series of movies. I believe they're called the Harlequin series of movies that are going on as this is recording. So check that Harlequin series out. But if for some reason you missed Savvy Sheldon Feels Good as Hell, then go back and get that one on the CW app. You know, speaking of being brave, my next two best of in the movie categories are number 4, Fantastic Four. I really love Fantastic Four. And I was going into that movie thinking, oh gosh, here's another iteration of Fantastic Four. Let's see if they'll get it right. And from looking at the trailer and looking at some of the clips that were out there, I was wondering kind of where the Jetsons kind of thing was coming from. But really, when I started watching, all of that went away, and it was just an amazing movie. Amazing, amazing movie. Number 3, Thunderbolts. Thunderbolts really surprised me, and I wasn't sure what I was going to get with Thunderbolts. As I said on the podcast episodes there's a 2-part episode about that one as well. As Jen said on the episode, and I agreed with her, when I was going into Thunderbolts, I wasn't sure what Thunderbolts was about. And I thought what I was going to get was Marvel's version of the Suicide Squad. But what I got was a rich story, a very layered ensemble character portrayals. I mean, it was really layered. Like, all of the characters in this ensemble had something else going on underneath. And really what it is a dramatic movie with superheroes in it. And for some reason, Marvel just really knows how to do those. I agree with what Perry said on the podcast, is that Marvel just really knows how to use the superheroes to do movies about other things, but with superheroes. It's good. My second favorite movie of this year is Superman. James Gunn's version of Superman was awesome. And we did a couple of episodes about this, but we did a lot of talking about this movie. And I just remember being very excited to go see this one and actually feeling that excitement as I was watching. and leaving the theater feeling that same excitement and wanting to talk about it after I left the theater. It's just that good. And, I'm just looking so forward to what James Gunn has in store for the DCU, because they really do need some direction and a reboot. So I'm really happy at how that all went out. And of course, we talked a lot about Mr. Terrific. I love Mr. Terrific, and I didn't know much about him. And then I watched this movie and I'm like, okay, we need a Mr. Terrific movie, or maybe even a TV show. I don't know. And we definitely need a Daily Planet TV show. I'm going to reiterate that. We definitely need a Daily Planet TV show. That would be hilariously fun, and it would just be a great time. My number one movie of 2025, and I'm going to say my number one movie of all time at this point, has got to be Sinners. We did not talk about Sinners on the podcast because Sinners is in the horror genre, but this movie is so much more than a Southern Gothic horror movie. And I did talk about this in a short on my YouTube channel, how much I love Sinners, but the movie sticks with you. It's so layered. It's so rich. It's like when you get a really good book and you're just like immersed. It is an immersion kind of thing. I am jealous of those who got to see it in 70 millimeter. I wish I had gotten to see it in that, but I did get to see it in the theater, and I'm so glad that I did get to see it in the theater. It is an experience. It is really an experience, and it's layered in history and in the places that I thought would hit me, because I'm not a horror person. As most of y'all know, I'm not really a fanatic there. I try to stay away from the genre. The places that really hit me were not the places that I thought were going to really hit me. And it hit me for different reasons that I thought. So I don't know why it wouldn't be at the top of everybody's list this year. I'm surprised that some even don't have it on their list for 2025, because it is the best movie this year, and possibly for me, the best movie that I have ever seen. So let's move on to nerdy TV shows. This year, I've got 6 nerdy TV shows that I really, really loved. And I'm going to say this is not really in a particular order. I am going to go from the bottom of my list to the top of my list. But that is not to say that this is in any particular order. So the first one here is The Penguin on HBO Max, part of the DC, not the DCU, but the other version of DC, as we talked about on, I believe it was the James Gunn Superman, the second part of our episode. We talked about the different versions of DC that are out there. But this season of The Penguin was amazing. And not just because we could not recognize Colin Farrell as Colin Farrell in the Penguin makeup and the way it was done, but the fact that the Penguin was a very complex, layered character. Oswald Cobb was very complex and very interesting to watch his evolution into the Penguin comic book character that we know. For those of us who, just watch DC and don't necessarily read the comic books, we saw Oswald Cobb evolve into the Penguin that we know. But what I really loved about this series was the character of Sophia Falcone Gigante and how that character came about. She was just a tragic character, and it really, pulled at my heartstrings to see how she was used in the way that she was used, and how she was a strong character that was made weaker but then strong in a different way, a not so good way. That portrayal of Sophia Falcone Gigante by that actress was just amazing. And the show itself was just a really amazing look at somebody who we just think of singularly as a villain. And I did an episode, I believe that was the first episode that we did of 2025, was about the Penguin. The next episode that I worked on was about Star Trek Discovery Season 5. And this year, Season 5 was the last season of Star Trek Discovery, and an amazing season. It was really sci-fi in its Star Trek sci-fi way, but it also had a mystery element to it. It had a kind of putting puzzle pieces together to try to figure out this mystery that was left by the progenitors. It had that mystery element to it that also made it kind of nerdy for me. And it harkened back to Star Trek TNG. There's also an episode of Star Trek TNG where this whole story of the progenitors originated, and to see them take that massive Easter egg of a TNG episode and to kind of use it for the basis of the season, this being the last season of Star Trek Discovery. Season 5 for me was just a wonderful giddy pleasure. For others, Season 5 was not as good as maybe Season 4 or even Season 3 of Star Trek Discovery, but I think it was the perfect little end cap on this particular series. The series as a whole was an amazing series. Loved the series. And it was basically one of the first kind of iterations that we saw in the newest section of Star Trek, in the style of a bingeable season. Because with our previous Star Trek series, TNG, the original series, Deep Space Nine, all of those in the original kind of era, those were definitely episodic. And Star Trek Discovery gave us this first look at what a bingeable modern Star Trek would look like. And I loved all the representation in this particular series. I love some of the cameos that were done in this particular series. And season 5 that we went over in 2025 was, for me, again, a perfect end cap to this particular series, and I loved watching it. So I'm going to put this under nerdy only because it is a mystery kind of thing. And because it's a mystery, I kind of put that under nerdy. I have a few shows. I love mysteries, and I have a few shows that I love watching, and I love seeing how that mystery unfolds or seeing how pieces are put together. And for me, that taps into the nerdy part of my brain. And this particular show was one of those that did that. And that is The Residence. It is on Netflix. It was one season, and I think, of course, as we know, it's been canceled. But this particular show, The Resident, was an awesome show. I love the mystery surrounding it. I especially loved Cordelia. The main character, as she just does her detective thing, and she is on the spectrum, and I love all of it. I loved every bit of it. I just sat and I just watched because it was just that entertaining. Now, this next show that I have on my list is not one that came out in 2025. The season actually came out before. This is Superman and Lois season 3. We talked about this on the podcast. We talked about season 3 on an episode. We talked about season 4 on an episode. So season 4 was the final season of Superman and Lois from the CW. And it came out in 2025, but I watched both seasons in 2025, and season 3 to me was the best season. I really love the grittiness. I love the realism of that season. And again, here is where we see a family dynamic. We see a drama. We see real life problems happening. And there just happen to be some superheroes around. So when we have that kind of dynamic and it's done well, it's just amazingly entertaining. And that's what this particular season was for me. Season 3 of Superman and Lois. My next entry on the best of 2025 Nerdy TV is Eyes of Wakanda. And this is an animated limited series in the MCU. And it's like a prequel, if you will, of Black Panther, where the Wakandans are trying to keep the power of vibranium to themselves. How do they do that? Or should they do that? Should they share this power with the world? Or should they guard it with their lives, and what that looks like throughout the iterations before Black Panther? And if I remember correctly, it was 4 episodes, and these were all amazingly illustrated. I loved all these episodes. And each episode goes through a different era, a different time period, and it kind of all then goes to a certain scene in Black Panther, and how all of these different time periods and what happened, ended up creating the set of events that happened in Black Panther. And it's really just well done. It's so well done and so entertaining. And like I said, even though these are not in necessarily a particular order, I will put this next particular show. This is going to be my number 1 show, best of 2025. The others don't necessarily have an order, but this one is definitely number 1, and that's Ironheart. OMG, this show was so amazing. It was totally entertaining. I love all the representation that was happening. I even love the villains, or if you want to call them anti-heroes. I just love how all of this played out. I loved how all the characters are woven into this. I loved how this pulled from Wakanda Forever. So we first see Ironheart in Wakanda Forever, and now we kind of get a little bit more about her character and what's going on there. And then how her character kind of pulls in to the whole MCU. And I loved everything about this particular show. And although a season 2 is not being talked about from Marvel, a season 2 really needs to happen, in my opinion. But there are a lot of Marvel TV shows where there's just like 1 season or 2 seasons, but there's no wrap up at the 2nd season. So it's weird. So I would like to see kind of where this goes after that, after Ironheart. But even the title cards, y'all, the title cards are just amazingly inventive in this particular show. So there's layers to everything. And there's certain characters that we were just like, oh my gosh, we really loved. I mean, the episodes that we did on Ironheart, you got to go back and listen to those, because you can see or hear the love there. But this was by far, from Nerdy TV, my fave. So there you have it. These are my nerdy romantic best of 2025. I have never done an episode like this before, so let me know what you think about having a best of each year as we do the podcast. Yeah, let me know what you think about doing that, or if you want our guest host to come on and do their best of, that would be interesting. Just let me know what you think. You can put it in the comments if you're on YouTube or wherever you are that has a comment section, or you can email the podcast at podcast@nerdyromanticspodcast.com. Hi. Want to get show notes from this and future episodes in your inbox? Then subscribe to Nerdy Romantics newsletter at nerdyromanticspodcast.com/subscribe. Nerdy Romantics newsletter not only has show notes, but nerdy and romantic recs and sneak peeks and exclusives of my spicy nerdy romances and love stories. I love talking sci-fi, superheroes, fantasy, and romance books, movies, and shows with my friends. So share this podcast with your nerdy romantic friends. Thanks for listening and for watching.